Picture this. You spend 20 years building a career worth hundreds of millions of dollars by being exactly what Hollywood wanted you to be. You pose for magazine covers, you wear the costumes, you cash the checks, you smile for the camera. Then right as younger, hotter actresses start getting the roles you used to get, you suddenly discover that everything you did to get famous was problematic. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the curious case of Scarlett Johansson versus the male gaze. A story so perfectly timed with the release of Jurassic Park Rebirth that you'd think it was scripted by the same people who brought us, well, Jurassic Park Rebirth. Stick around, because we're about to dive into Hollywood's latest case of selective amnesia. And trust me, you're going to want to hear how this story ends. Well. Another day, another Hollywood actress discovering feminism right around the time her leading lady days are numbered. I'm your host, Chris, the Critical Nerd, and today we're diving into the fascinating world of Scarlett Johansson, who suddenly realized that being objectified for millions of dollars was actually terrible. Oh, and wouldn't you know it, this revelation comes right as Jurassic World Rebirth stomps into theaters with all the grace of a three-legged brontosaurus. But we'll get to that train wreck in a moment. So, our dear Scarlett recently sat down with the Times of London because nothing says, I'm relatable, like a British newspaper interview, to discuss her career evolution. And folks, she's got some thoughts about the dreaded male gaze that apparently plagued her early career. And I quote, "When I was younger, a lot of roles I was offered or I went for had their ambitions or character arcs revolving around their own desirability or the male gaze or a male-centered story. That's less frequent, though. Something has shifted." Oh boy, you're not kidding, Scarlett. Something has indeed shifted in Hollywood. Your box office draw. Now, this is the first time she's dropped this particular wisdom bomb. Back in 2022, she was already laying the groundwork for this narrative, explaining how she felt objectified and pigeonholed, and how she thought people saw her as some old fossil at the ripe old age of 40. Yeah, 40. Now here's what's absolutely hilarious about this whole situation. It's like watching someone at a restaurant complain about how terrible the food is while they're asking for seconds. For 2 decades, Scarlett Johansson built her entire career on being the hot girl in movies. And you know what? She was damn good at it. Lost in Translation, The Avengers, Lucy, Ghost in the Shell. Hell, even her voice work as an AI in Her was somehow sultry. The woman made tens of millions of dollars being exactly what she now claims to have been uncomfortable with. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets interesting. She's not wrong about Hollywood being a looks-based industry. The problem is the selective outrage. You think Hugh Jackman enjoyed dehydrating himself for 3 days before every shirtless Wolverine scene? You think Chris Hemsworth loved surviving on chicken breast and sadness to maintain that Thor physique? But, oh no, poor Scarlett had to look pretty and wear form-fitting costumes. Truly, it must have been a nightmare cashing those 8-figure checks. And this is where we get into the Hollywood double standard. Ah yes, the double standard. Let's talk about the real elephant in the room here. Scarlett's complaining about the male gaze while conveniently ignoring the female gaze that's been objectifying men in Hollywood for decades. Every Marvel movie has a mandatory shirtless scene. Every romantic comedy has the hot guy takes off his shirt moment. But somehow that's just normal? Expected? Where are these think pieces about Chris Evans being reduced to his pectoral muscles? Where's the outrage about Jason Momoa's Aquaman being nothing but abs and long hair? All right, that's different because reasons. And now, right on cue, we have Jurassic World Rebirth, Scarlett's big chance to prove that her new empowered woman era is what audiences are clamoring for. She's taken over the franchise lead from Chris Pratt, who, let's be honest, was pretty damn likable in the role. So, how's it working out for her so far? Well, we have some early numbers, and they're interesting. The movie just opened with early tracking projections around 100 to 125 million for its opening weekend. That's 4-day weekend. 75 million for the 3-day weekend. And currently it sits at 57% on Rotten Tomatoes. Oh, have to mention this too. Wednesday, the day it opened, it raked in somewhere 28, 30 million, depending on the publication you look at. So there's that. Now, don't get me wrong about that Rotten Tomatoes score. It's actually better than the last couple of Jurassic World movies, which were absolute trash. But here's the thing. We're about to find out whether audiences are truly hungry for this new direction or if they're just showing up for the dinosaurs. Look, it's too early to call this a success or failure. The movie literally just came out yesterday as I record this video. But the timing of Scarlett's male gaze comments right as she's headlining a major franchise reboot, that's either incredible coincidence or incredibly calculated. And here's what gets me about the whole situation. This is the same pattern we see over and over again out of Hollywood. Actress gets famous being attractive and talented. Actress makes bank for a decade or two. Actress hits 40 and suddenly discovers that being valued for looks is problematic. Actress repositions herself as a serious artist who's above such shallow concerns. It's the Hollywood equivalent of, you can't fire me, I quit. Trying to get ahead of the inevitable by reframing it as some brave, principled stand. Do you think all those young actresses fighting for roles feel sorry for Scarlett? Do you think they're nodding along thinking, yes, it must have been so hard to be chosen over us because you were more attractive? Or do you think they're looking at their own reflections, wondering why they didn't win the genetic lottery? There's a bigger picture to all this. And I'm not saying there aren't problems with how Hollywood treats women. There absolutely are. But this ain't it, Chief. This is a millionaire actress who built her career on being attractive, complaining about being attractive right as she's aging out of those roles. The real issue here is that Hollywood has always been a business built on fantasy and aspiration. We don't go to movies to see ordinary people doing ordinary things. We go to see beautiful people doing extraordinary things. That's the whole point. And you know what? That applies to everyone, men and women alike. The difference is that most male actors just accept that looking good is part of the job and move on with their lives. But here's where the rubber meets the road. Now, if Scarlett's right, if audiences are truly tired of the male gaze and hungry for these new empowered female characters, then Jurassic World Rebirth should prove it, right? Well, we're about to find out. The movie's just opened, and while the projections look decent, this is a real test of whether audiences connect with this new direction. I mean, the critics, they seem mixed. You know, that 57% Rotten Tomatoes score, which again is actually an improvement for this franchise. But here's what I find fascinating. The timing of all this. Scarlett's out there talking about how she's evolved beyond the male gaze right as she's headlining a major franchise reboot. Is this genuine artistic growth? Or is this strategic positioning? Time will tell. Here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud, though. There is no male gaze. There's just the human gaze. We like looking at attractive people. That's not sexist or problematic. That's biology. Men like looking at beautiful women. Women like looking at beautiful men. Gay men like looking at beautiful men. Gay women like looking at beautiful women. It's not rocket science, folks. The problem isn't that Hollywood caters to this. The problem is pretending it's some kind of oppressive conspiracy when it's just basic human nature. The conclusion of this, well, here we are. We're watching Scarlett Johansson complain about the very thing that made her career possible. Right now, as her new Empowered movie hits theaters. It's like watching someone burn down the ladder they climbed to success and then wondering why they can't get back up. Look, I don't have anything personal against Scarlett Johansson. She's a talented actress. She's made some great movies. But this whole male gaze crusade feels less like genuine concern and more like strategic repositioning from someone who sees the writing on the wall. And you know what? Maybe that's smart business. Maybe playing the victim of your own success is exactly what the right move in today's Hollywood. But don't expect the rest of us to pretend we don't see what's really happening here. The male gaze didn't make Scarlett Johansson's career. Talent, timing, and yes, being attractive did. And there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is pretending otherwise. So anyway, that's all I got for today, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think about Scarlett's sudden feminist awakening and whether you'll be checking out Jurassic World Rebirth, which, by the way, might actually be worth watching just for the dinosaurs, even if the messaging feels a bit heavy-handed. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Critical Nerd, out.